Now that we have the audiences which we created in Google Analytics in AdWords, we can apply these to our different advertising campaigns. So I'm going to assume a base level of knowledge about setting up campaigns in AdWords. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the actual mechanics of setting up the campaigns. The first retargeting channel we're going to focus on is the most commonly used, and that is display advertising. So display adverts are great and a relatively low-cost way of re-engaging an audience who's undertaking a certain action on your site and then left for whatever reason. So what we're going to be discussing now is actually creating your remarketing campaigns in Google AdWords based on those audience segments which we've created in Google Analytics. So you'll need to log into Google AdWords, and then when you come through to the login page, if you hit the spanner in the top right and then press on Audience Manager, you're going to see those audiences which you've created in Google Analytics. So in order to actually create a campaign then, hit Campaigns, hit the plus sign, hit New Campaign, and then it's going to ask you what type of campaign you'd like to set up. So first off, let's create a display campaign. Now, I prefer to create it without a goal. This gives you more flexibility. Say you want to do a standard campaign, and then you just put in your business website. So I'm just going to do this for a business which we've just launched. Hit Continue. And then set the campaign name. So this can be, again, objective based, but for this, we'll just put Udemy Test. And then you can select which country you'd like your adverts to run in, languages, whether you want it to be manually or automated bidding, and then you can set your budget. You can then also set your delivery method. So standard means it spends it evenly over time. Accelerated means it'll get through your budget as quickly as possible. So you might run out of budget, especially if you've only put in £1. You can then set the ad rotation, which either Google is going to optimize based on the best performing ads or just spread them evenly. There are a number of other options. The main one which I'd recommend focusing on is frequency capping. You can, of course, set the devices again, which is just like location, so it'll show only on specific devices. But the main one worth focusing on is frequency capping. So I generally recommend only doing 3 to 5 impressions a day, because other than that, I think it's overkill and people, get a bit weary of your brand. So you set the number of viewable impressions per day, and then you go down to create your ad group. So for this, I'm just going to call it Udemy Remarketing, because that's what this ad group is about. And then I am going to select remarketing under my audience list. So this is where I can actually then select those remarketing lists, which I've pulled across from Google Analytics. So you can see if I click into that, it has one of the remarketing lists which I've built in the past, and it'll show you the number of impressions on the right hand side. You can see we haven't got many impressions because it's quite a new site. You can then also narrow it down by demographics, or indeed you can narrow it down by the other content types, the other kind of targeting facets which Google includes within AdWords. You can then set your overall bid. So this is how much you're willing to pay for a click on one of your adverts. And then you actually create the advert itself. So this is where you create the actual physical advert. So you can either upload your own ads, so you can create them in Canva or Photoshop or whatever, and then upload them, or you can upload elements of an advert into what they call a responsive ad. And then once you're done, you can just hit Create Campaign, and your campaign will appear under the Campaigns tab down on the main pages of AdWords.